New Jersey State Senator Robert Menendez stopped by the Richard A. Ness Senior Citizen Center in Fort Lee, New Jersey, May 23rd to discuss the proposed Republican federal budget cuts in Medicare. Here is what he had to say.
Thank you for staying. I wanted to talk to you about something that I will be returning to Washington later today, and we will be having a debate and votes on this week. And it's the type of debate that really will affect your lives and those of seniors across our state and across our country. And that is the Republican plan that has already passed the House of Representatives that takes Medicare as we know it and ends it. And it does so in a way that not only ends it, but puts private insurance companies in the decision-making of your health care, and does so at the same time while cutting benefits. And I think about the debate we had a week ago when I was trying to get the big oil companies in this country, the top 5 oil companies, who this year are going to make $125 billion in profits. And I said to them, you no longer need the tax breaks that exist under our tax code that gives out of all of our money as Americans and taxpayers over $21 billion to the big 5 oil companies. And I said, instead of having you take $21 billion, let's use that money to ultimately help us reduce our deficit as a country. And it seems to me that if you're going to make $125 billion in profits this year, the last thing you need is another $2 billion a year for the next 10 years. So you can live with making $123 billion instead of $125 billion in profits. And I talk about that because at the same time that our Republican colleagues opposed ending their tax breaks, they are promoting ending Medicare as we know it. And what would be the result of that? For the average New Jerseyan who is on Medicare, it would cost them an additional $6,800 out of pocket. Secondly, I don't know how many of you may have this issue, but certainly I know many seniors in our state who have the challenge of a great number of prescription drugs they must take. And you know, one of the things that we found out is for people who have a high number of prescription drugs, they fall into a gap in the coverage under Medicare, in which they are no longer covered. We call that the donut hole. But what we did when we passed the health care law is begin to eliminate that hole, starting this year. People got, if you fell into that hole, you got a $250 check from the federal government, and then you started getting 50% deductions on future prescriptions. And by the time the law is fully effective 2 more years from now, that hole goes away. Under the Republican plan, the hole comes back. And that prescription gap in coverage ends up being once again the reality for seniors with high prescription drug coverages. And then the final thing is to think that when we grow older, and I'm certainly feeling the effects of it, so as we grow older, you know, we have challenges. You know, something goes wrong. No matter how healthy we try to keep ourselves, no matter how well we eat, no matter how we watch our diet, something goes wrong. And if you're going to try to get insurance in the private marketplace, when you already have some illness, when you've had a heart condition, when you have diabetes, when you have anything that is afflicting you that is a continuing challenge, well, it's going to be very hard to get insurance in the private marketplace, which is why we created Medicare in the first place back in 1964. So our Republican colleagues opposed the creation of Medicare when we created it, and now they seek to go back to privatize it. And I just think that's fundamentally wrong, especially when you take all of the money that they say is going to be saved and you put it to tax cuts for the wealthiest people in the country. Now, my mother passed away a year and a half ago. She struggled with Alzheimer's. She worked in the factories of New Jersey as a seamstress. She worked incredibly hard to help our family achieve their hopes and dreams and aspirations. And I know that she would not have lived with the dignity that she deserved in the twilight of her life, but for Medicare as her health care security, and what my sister and I was able to contribute in addition to that. And I saw her struggle. And I don't want anybody's parents, I don't want any of our parents and grandparents to face that struggle in the twilight of their life. And so this budget, which has already passed the House of Representatives, and if it were to pass the Senate, would be sent to the President for his signature into law, that would change Medicare, is up for a debate in the vote in the Senate this week. And I just want you to know that I understand what health care security is all about. I understand that seniors are on fixed incomes. I understand that when we talk about a value of honoring our parents and grandparents who help build families and communities and struggle, that honoring them from a federal perspective is making sure that they have health care security in the twilight of their life. And I am going back to the United States Senate to argue against, to vote against, and to urge my colleagues to defeat this proposal, because we cannot privatize Medicare, raise costs, and cut benefits. So I hope that you'll reach out to your other members of Congress and give them a piece of your mind. Adlai Stevenson said it best: when I get the heat at home, I see the light in Washington. So creating a little heat here at home and letting people know that you think this is a bad idea would be a good thing, because we need to raise our voices and make sure that as we deal with our deficit problems, and we will deal with those deficit problems, but there are better ways. There are better ways. You know, as I said, we don't need to give the oil companies $20 billion in tax breaks. We can put that to deficit reduction. We don't, even the Secretary of Defense, who is a holdover from the Bush administration, a Republican appointee, continued under President Obama, has outlined billions of dollars in savings in defense and still keep the country strong. There are a whole host of programs that don't work so well, and we'll have to consider shutting some of those down. But what we cannot do is keep our promise, our commitment of this intergenerational approach. And that is what this debate is all about this week. So thank you so much for having me with you today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and I assure you we're going to fight and we're going to succeed at keeping Medicare alive.